Coming up this week on Serious Joy, the Mega Monthly Zodiac Report is on the way. It's Aries season and we're christening the Migo. Is your ego ready for the reboot? Join me, Sensei Christopher Witecki, and lead astrologer Robbie Hunt as we join forces to kick off a new astrological year. Premiering this week on SeriousJoy.com. This week in your astrology, the aftermath of the total lunar eclipse early this morning will pour out like a karmic tsunami this weekend, drowning the old life, and those details and more on Namaste Today Live. Greetings to my galactic family and earthly neighbors. Welcome to Namaste Today Live. I'm your cosmic comedian, aka known as the Sensei to Serious Joy, here to bring my mission of love and ascension to you, bring it to you real time, week after week. We're streaming live now on YouTube, Facebook, X.com, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. If you're in our chat room tonight, say hello to your brothers and sisters and cosmic cousins. Tell us where you're watching from and what your astrology sign is. This week's top astro headlines are: Mercury is Retrograde. You have to be reminded, right? Well, we are going to learn about the Wigo as Mercury goes backwards to the sign of Aries. Then Monday, the Sun conjoins the North Node in Pisces, which means God Universe is launching the new reality. And the Sun shifts into a high vibration Aries, probably the first time it's been a high vibration Aries since Atlantis. And tonight, after the conclusion of Namaste Today, switch movie files, astrologer, spiritual teacher, human design, and Gene Keen's guide, Jai Gobin talks her modality blends that leads to accuracy in readings like no other. But first, before we dive in all that cosmic juice, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather runs from Saturday, March 15th to Friday, March 21st, 2025. This week's zodiac weather is sponsored by the Highest Self Institute. Expand your highest self and create extraordinary abundance at the premier spiritual coaching institute that uniquely combines Eastern and Western wisdom. Learn more about their upcoming Dharma Summit at highselfinstitute.com. That's highselfinstitute.com. Diving into the weekend forecast, over the weekend, we will hit the highest spiritual mark in a given year and then devote ourselves to a new direction. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny and blessed. Step 25 means that Neptune rules today. You are sensing the Almighty. Watch what angels are about to do. And Mercury stations retrograde overnight. On Sunday, it's sunny and crystal. Step 26 means that Saturn rules the day. You are sensing a new direction and devotion. And with the moon transiting in Libra, you're accepting obligation to yourself, then others. A great representation of the new Wigo. Taking a sneak peek at the upcoming week, over the course of the following 5 days, you wrap up the Libra transit and then dive into Aries, launching the Wigo. On Monday, it's sunny and balancing. Step 27 means that Mars rules the day. Expect things to be moving rather quickly. You are sensing your destiny. With the moon in Scorpio, you are drawing lines between the old and the new, and you're following what feels right in between. The Sun conjoins the North Node in Pisces today, conjoining spiritual forces with the intentions of the heart. On Tuesday, it's sunny and private. Step 28 means that Mother Earth rules the day. With the moon in Scorpio, you're feeling tied down and secure and sensing a new completion. You could say you're undeciding thoughts about yourself and gently manifesting the new reality. On Wednesday, sunny and reserved is our prediction for the day. Step 29 is the Grandmaster step and final step of the Pisces season. You are sensing eternity with this step and getting emotionally comfortable with the future. On top of this, the Sun conjoins Neptune, bringing super spirituality to the day. The moon moves from Scorpio into Sagittarius, rebuilding your story. And with the Sun at Grandmaster step 29 Pisces, you may be tested on everything. On Thursday, it's sunny and learning. Step 0 means that Pluto rules the day. This is the first day of the I Act I Am Aries transit, now called the I Am transit. The moon is in Sagittarius, propelling your story forward in an emotional way, and you're declaring that I am sovereign, taking a new approach with yourself. And at 5 p.m., the equinox ingresses into Aries. And then on Friday, it's sunny and super. Step 1 means the Sun rules the day, the I love state of awareness. What you declare on this day is that I am love, discovering the power of believing in your heart. Venus retrograde sextiles Pluto at 3 degrees, meaning you're opening up now to a new way of acting that's tied to protecting your beliefs. At the moon crossing the galactic center, the universe is informed of your changes ahead.
I believe we need to come together once a year. Thank you for believing in yourself. Thank you for believing in us. Where do you need help? What resources do you need?
You are much closer to making your dent in social media than you think.
You're that leader.
Holy moly, friends, we are in the midst of an eclipse right now. As we are rolling this show, it actually eclipsed early this morning. The first eclipse of the season, a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo at step 23. And that means, in our opinion, that you're probably going to see the destruction of some vision of reality that you once knew. That's due to the South Node in Virgo, and you'll notice that eclipses always happen along the nodes. Now, this collapse of reality happens actually every 18 years. Every time the South Node is in Virgo, we sort of reboot our reality, and that's because the North Node is in Pisces, where we're focusing on our spirituality and our higher spiritual goals. But this year, it's actually really profound because this is the first time in our entire lifetime that we have a collapse of reality, leaving us with a new spiritual version of ourselves. It's very exciting. In fact, you could say that we almost have to collapse reality because we have changed so much and cleared so much of our karma that we no longer fit into the vibration of Earth herself. One could say that Earth is the part of us that's ascending and pulling us up afterward. Now, it's been a very profound week, and ultimately what's happening is that we are launching a new spiritual reality, is how we put it. Now, we believe that this comes from the fact that Earth had really two major chapters this lifetime. One chapter was to clear our own karma. This karma, which is the things that you are holding on to from past lives, either whether it's talent or failures you've had, they sort of plague the soul, and they have you stir inside yourself, creating density, a weight inside of you, and keeping things kind of low to the ground, low energy and high compacted. We all were born with these, and I think we have been for really centuries, but this particular lifetime was special because Neptune entered into Pisces in 2012 and began to bring some understanding to what these karmic trends were. We were able to identify them and hopefully start to end them, especially once Saturn went into Pisces. So in this particular round of the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, we're not only getting a spiritual upgrade, we're getting a major eon upgrade. We're now moving to what I call a new reality. And we say we because we believe that this is going to be a system of plurality. In other words, to have unity consciousness, we must not think of ourselves as just one person, but rather one people, and that we must always think of the other as we think of ourselves. This is something that has been growing in our whole lifetime, but now I feel that we're being reprogrammed. I also feel that our ego has been reprogrammed. That Mars retrograde that happened from December until February was really the unplugging of the old ego that was based on survival, and we believe that this new ego is based on thrival. So energetically, last week, what ultimately happened was we went into this period of emotion. All the major step twos, all the 20 degrees of a transit involve your feelings and another sign. And so what we have done this week is we have emotionally processed ourself and then added it to another part of ourself. And as we went through this line of feelings and processing, we determined that perhaps we were heading in the wrong direction. That probably happened on step 22 when the Sun conjoined Saturn. That conjunction was probably a decision that you did not belong on your current path. That was the beginning of the end, frankly, where you might have realized that your vision for the future or your perception of reality is no longer suitable for where you're going. And that led to the eclipse this morning. This is Friday, as this show goes live. The eclipse this morning that ultimately is tearing the fabric of our reality and setting us up for a new one. Now, as we move on to this next week, it's going to be actually kind of interesting because right off the bat, what happens is Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury retrogrades tomorrow, actually tonight, overnight at 12:46 a.m. Mountain, so that's 2:46 a.m. Eastern time, at 9 degrees, ironically. That 9 has been a real constant. This is the same 9 that we have new moons. And that 9 is ultimately your ego. So Mercury moves from step 9 all the way back and into Pisces to 26 degrees Pisces. In essence, that Mercury retrograde is going to have us rethink now exactly what we think of ourselves in terms of how to respond to ourselves, and really working through some of the fight or flight triggers that we have and replacing them with thrival triggers. Now, Mercury will then go all the way back to Pisces at step 26, which indicates that by the end of this retrograde, you'll now have a refreshed vision for your spiritual mission. So although you may feel like you know your mission, there's still some details that have to be sort of ironed out. And that's going to be really what the remainder of this weekend is. You're going to come to a conclusion. Some prayer probably on Saturday where you connect to your higher self. Saturday is the final Grandmaster Day of Pisces, step 25. This is the same day that Mercury retrogrades. And in this sense, I think we're going to feel a new connection to God universe. We have to also point out that we're very close to the nodes and we're very close to Neptune. So the energy will become very spiritual as you move into the week. It's going to become maybe even unreal or surreal, especially with Mercury retrograde. You could say we're kind of floating in between realities, quite literally. Then as we move into the week next week, the 5-day week, we wrap up the sun in Pisces. And this is ultimately the launch of your mission. Now, a mission does not have to be very well defined at this point. It has to be sort of a destination, a feeling, a vibration that you want to lead to. But for many people I've been talking to, there's been surprises along the way that the mission has been, in fact, much greater or more profound than they once imagined, or they find themselves going for things that they would have never gone for. I believe this is because we have faced a lot of our karma with Pisces, and we've faced a lot of our doubt. And so now that we are, fearless, and that we are more on our side of winning and our side of loving ourselves, we're probably going for what our heart has always wanted. Then as we move into Hump Day and we move into Thursday, the sun will then move into Aries. And what's compelling about this is that this is the first time, I think, that Aries has been high vibration our entire life, and perhaps since before the age of Aries, frankly. Aries has always been our connection to the earth. And as long as we've been low vibration, Aries has been that first layer. But Aries has gone through tremendous change. Chiron is now in the high degrees, or the 3rd chapter of Aries. And that means we have healed all of our ego issues and we're ready to ascend our ego to what we call the we-go. And I believe that's what the Aries transit will be about creating a new motivation inside of us, a root intention. Also, a defensiveness is not based on survival, but based on living on this highest point of consciousness. In other words, it's going to take the ego for us to ascend, and we're going to have to employ the ego as our basically instrument to get there. And so next week, we will begin Aries on Thursday. And really by the time we're on the air again, it will be kind of a cranky day as the sun is at 2 degrees Aries and we're starting to feel the emotions of being reborn. So let's take a look at the planet, shall we, and get a little more deep and sharp on what we're seeing and what we'll be experiencing. Starting, of course, with the sun. Look at that party going on there. We have in Pisces the sun, Neptune, Saturn, and the North Node. And ultimately, what you're going to have here is the sun is crossing all these planets. It crossed Saturn already this week. That was at step 22. That was a profound step to maybe go to another dimension. That might have been when you realize that you're not the student anymore. You're the teacher. Or you're not the child. You're the parent. That kind of a dimensional shift. Or you're now single. Or you're now empty nesters. And that's usually the shallow label, but it's more profound than that. It means you're living a different life. You have different spiritual values. You're interested in different things. Now, as we go through this week, the sun will cross over both Neptune and the North Node first. And as we get into those high degrees here of these higher planets and the North Node, I'm expecting things to get a little kind of shifty, if you will. That's because, first of all, Neptune can be very delusional. And secondly, we've never had Neptune at 29 degrees our entire lifetime. I mean, not 29 degrees Pisces. That degree is the miracle degree. That's also the degree where dimensional shifts can happen, access to higher realms from what we understand, and things we don't understand, frankly. I think we're going to find that this entire week is a bit blurred by that. Now, the sun this week will go from step 25 to step 1 Aries. So we go from really the high vibration of Pisces all the way to the very first energies of Aries. And those first energies of Aries is really the crafting of the ego. So the ego is basically reborn, particularly after it crosses Neptune at 29 degrees, and is now reborn in this new form by step 1. I love myself is the grandmaster step of the sun. And so we basically go from the highest spiritual Pisces to the highest expression of self-love, by the end of the week. So it's a pretty profound week. Neptune, of course, stays at step 29 the entire time. Again, I've already talked about this. It's going to cause a lot of uncertainty, and I think I would, pray twice because the first prayer may not be as clear. Saturn this week, however, does go from step 22 to step 23, which means we go from changing our altitude of how we manage our spirituality to coming into a clear vision about our spirituality. So I do expect us to kind of sharpen in what we think we're doing and where we think we're aiming for. And then the North Node is going to stay at a constant step 27. But what's interesting about that, of course, is going to South Node at 27 Virgo. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but that is the destruction of life, as the North Node at 27 is the creation of a mission. Moving into Aries, things get a little shifty. We have a lot of things going on in Aries. Now, first, of course, we have already Chiron in there, but Venus is retrograde, and Mercury is retrograde too as of this week, because Mercury retrogrades tomorrow on Saturday. The show goes live on Fridays. Chiron, first of all, finally goes to step 21. Thank goddess. Chiron's been at step 20 forever, and it just is the holding of space and healing that the future can be what we want, that we can do it without destroying ourselves, that we can do it without following the patterns of Atlantis and World War II and all these types of things. I think that's what we've been fearing, because remember, those high degrees of Aries is also our degrees of warfare and conflict and some of the darker, violence that's happened on planet Earth. Now that Chiron goes to step 21, we begin to heal our capacity to write our own story. And I think that's actually going to be the biggest healing, is that we are the ones that write our story. It's not aliens. It's not history books. It's not professors. It's us. And so we will rewrite our history, take that into our command. And I think that's part of the healing, that we decide what our history was and therefore what our future can be. And we'll write the future, and we'll write that that basic blueprint or first draft of the script. Now, Venus retrograde this week moves from step 7 to step 3 Aries. Now, this is, of course, moving backwards in the sky. But what it means is that we're sort of going back in time. Although we're moving forward into a new era, a thing we've never done before, we're having fantasies of the past. It would not be surprising if you start thinking about different times and hardships that you've gone through, because Venus at 7 is basically the spiritual karma of your ego. And Venus at 3 is opening up to what you truly believe about yourself. So I think there'll be a lot of spiritual therapy going on inside of us, where we sort of retroactively analyze how our ego became the way it is. And that's really in preparation for the ego becoming what we want it to be. Mercury also is retrograde this week, moving from step 9 to step 7. And so basically Mercury is just in front of Venus, and Mercury is having us rethink our motivations and our intellectual connection to our ego. Mercury and the ego are kind of best friends. I call them drinking buddies, because our mind often instigates our ego, and our ego often triggers our mind. And so I think some of that sort of warfaring, or what's the word I'm looking for? The pest energy of our mind, where our mind can be a pest and trigger our ego. I think some of these motives are going to be deconstructed, but for them to be deconstructed, you'll have to have them come up and then decide you don't want them. And then, of course, the sun this week will move from Pisces into early Aries. We'll hit step 0 and step 1, which means our hearts will be feeling the new birth of ourself and a new love for ourselves for different reasons. Now, moving over to Uranus real quick. Uranus is finally at step 24 Taurus. The exciting thing about this is it's a net 6, first of all, which is a calming agent. So we kind of calm down the pressure we were feeling with Uranus to get ahead. So we're all feeling we've got to get ahead at step 23. We've got to get our plans in order. We've got to get our contracts in order. There's a lot of pressure. Now that Uranus is 24, we can finally relax and just sort of ease into what we are doing. It also means that we are feeling where we belong. Now, this is what's important. Because we're building something entirely new here on Earth that you haven't had before, you have to feel into it. Your mind's not going to be able to really envision it very well. You'll feel that you belong with this, but you don't belong with that. And so what this is allowing us to do is sort of lay out the building plans for what we want to build, but doing it kind of an intuitive way and from the heart. Now, looking at the emotions of the week and the moon. The moon right now is in Libra, and that means tomorrow and Sunday it will be in wishy-washy Libra. Wishy-washy meaning we're going back and forth about things, and that's the point, to feel both sides. And so we're sort of weighing the sides of how we put the pieces of this puzzle of Pisces together. Remember, step 25 is Saturday and step 26 is Sunday. So we're kind of weighing back and forth our spiritual devotion in the biggest way, like what is our soul heading for? It's a big day on Saturday because it's the Grandmaster step of Pisces. But then on Sunday, a devotion to a new direction for our heart that is aligned with our spirit. Then come Monday and Tuesday and part of Wednesday, things get a little sharp as we have our final degree of Pisces, and the moon in Scorpio means that we're very guarded and we're dividing our emotions, really drawing the line between the old era and the new era, and making sure that everyone keeps their hands and feet in at all times. Then comes Wednesday. I think emotionally things kind of lighten up. The moon moves into Sagittarius, and for the rest of the week, you're emotionally processing your story, how your story is changing, and by Friday when we come back, you'll be actually processing the moon crossing the galactic center, which means you'll have a new script for how things will go. Now over in Gemini, we have jumping Jupiter in Gemini, and things have been jumping because Jupiter's been at step 13 this last week. That's made the mind kind of be a little frisky, if you will, going back and forth and jumping from the future to the present. It's because step 13 is for us to follow what our heart believes and override all of our thoughtware for that purpose. But once Jupiter hits step 14, this is profound because step 14 is a grandmaster step of Gemini, and that means our minds will be made up in the way we think about daily reality. So we're finally settling how we see reality when Jupiter hits 14. I'm expecting a lot of the nervousness to go down and the anxiety, if you've had it, to slow down as well. Now, Mars in Cancer this week. Mars moves from step 19 to step 20 Cancer. This is a big deal because 19, first of all, can be a very challenging step. So it can be frustrating. You can't get, it's kind of like when you're trying to thread a needle and get a thread through a needle. It's very, very focused and very fine. It's like Mars at 19, we're just trying very carefully to move our stories forward, to get the fire started, to get the abundance started, to get our feelings behind that. And that can be frustrating because the 9 in that is Mars. And so there's a tendency to overfire or push too hard. So Mars will be sort of triggering us and creating anger out of frustration and anger out of fear, probably, that's due to a fear of not manifesting. Then once Mars goes to step 20, things start to get passionate. And things will be passionate for a while. With Mars in the 20s, it means that we're now coming to the table with an ego-fused emotion. We'll have to be very careful, however, especially with step 20, to draw some boundaries, that our ego can't push us too far, that we can't project our emotions on other people, and that we must respond to our feelings according to where we're going, not where we've been. So it's kind of a reprogramming of how the ego interacts with our feelings. Now, moving over to Virgo. In Virgo, we only have, of course, now the South Node, but that's all you really need, friend, because the South Node is at step 27, which nets to a 9. This means that ultimately things will start to collapse on Earth. Now, I don't mean like whole civilizations, but I do mean that businesses will fail if they were not in alignment with the new versions of things. You'll find that marriages fail. You'll find that systems and clubs fail. Just all sorts of failures, so to speak. Failures in the sense of breaking down. But these are things that are frankly in the way. You'll find that the slower things that couldn't really keep up are the ones that start to fall. And you'll find that things that were overbuilt and patched with all sorts of remedies but no real cure will also begin to fall. My advice to you is to let it fall, frankly, to let it go, to not follow it, to not try to save it, because we're building a new world now. And don't worry, with the Earth in Virgo, the universe is manifesting as we go. Now, in Libra, this is a sign for some instability. Black Moon Lilith is in Libra. She moves into Scorpio this month when the sun moves into Aries. So things will get a bit more intense when that happens. But this week, ultimately, we're going to be facing fears of abandonment, facing fears that our relationship ends or our relationships are too toxic to take with us. Any fears you have with being alone and having to live a life of being alone. And then when Black Moon Lilith moves into 29 degrees, this could be anything that happened in the entire Black Moon Lilith transit in Libra. So you might be tested once again on a higher version of an old fear you had, maybe all the way back to step 4 with a relationship to yourself, or something you had dealt with in the teen degrees where you're dealing with fear around relationships to others. This will be sort of that on steroids, like that to an extreme. And so the important thing to do is to realize that fear is there, not because something's going to go wrong, but because something once went wrong. And our lesson is not that we are to keep it from coming up. Our lesson is to respond to it appropriately so it does not affect us. So this is the final test of Black Moon Lilith in Libra, and therefore the final test of fear and dark energy when it comes to human relationships for a while. And then lastly, Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius. Well, I got so much to say about her. Pluto. Pluto ultimately has been stabilizing Aquarius in great ways, I have to say. We've been talking about this in our staff meetings that Pluto and Capricorn felt so different than Pluto and Aquarius. Now that Pluto's going to step 3, it's really compelling because it's telling us that we have to protect our belief in ourselves. Now, usually, like in Capricorn, what we had in that state of awareness was not a lot of change. Capricorn energy doesn't change. It's designed to stop. It's designed to hold things in place like a corporation and never change. So every time Pluto hit a Capricorn degree, it had to sort of break it open and force it to change. Ironically, Aquarius doesn't have problems changing. Aquarius always wants to be the best of the best. So Pluto isn't really breaking down your belief in yourself. It's probably pretty good, but it is not perhaps guarded. Maybe you allow other people to interfere with your belief in yourself, or you allow society to interfere, or maybe you allow your own thoughts to interfere. And what Pluto is saying is for you to go forward in this next chapter, for you to launch this new ego, to step into the new reality, you must have constant belief in yourself, and you must not allow anything to interfere with that, even if it's you. So give yourself the space and time. If you don't know what you believe, give yourself more space and time. All right, that's our planets and transits. Now it's time to talk about you, my friends, and our soul horoscope. Excellent. Well, welcome to our horoscopes. Soul horoscopes, that is. It's our per sign scope. If you're new here, welcome, my friends. We give a little horoscope every week, and I got to say, I've been doing this for 19 years now, doing horoscopes for all 12 signs. I never get tired of it, frankly, because it's so interesting to see the signs grow up over time. But this particular time that we're in is really fascinating because a lot of the signs are moving out of their stereotypes. And it's always been known to astrologers that this is the case. But signs change over time. I wonder, for instance, what an Aries was like in Egypt. I imagine it was a bit different, had different qualities about it. And ultimately, I wondered, what it was in Mesopotamia when astrology was begun at that time. Well, now astrology is making another change. Some signs are changing more than others. And this week, it represents really the big change because the Pisces wrap-up of Pisces is ultimately the new intentions that the soul has. And the birth in Aries is the now birth of the new ego that is crafted after those new intentions. So we're going to see some pretty profound change with many of the signs. I'll point out the signs I think are changing the most. But in each of the signs, we're going to talk about these things. For one, the Mercury retrograde. What will Mercury retrograde mean for your sign and where it will be retrograding for you? We'll talk about where it will begin and where it will end and how you'll be recalculating your thinking. We'll also talk about the Sun conjuncting the North Node and conjuncting Neptune this week. Now, when it conjuncts the North Node, ultimately it's kind of a course correction. So if you have been sort of like a little off, let's say off course, aiming for something but not necessarily aiming for the right thing, when the Sun conjuncts the North Node, there'll be a quick correction. So you'll suddenly like put back in your place. And so for some, it might be a little dizzying, and for others, it might be affirming, but that will be kind of a jolt. And then the Sun will conjunct Neptune, which will be ultimately our heart surrendering to all of our new spiritual beliefs and embracing our new spiritual beliefs, as well as rejecting the ones that we reject. And so that's basically signing the soul contract. When the Sun makes love to Neptune, the energies are now one. Then the Sun moves into Aries, and we'll talk about where you'll be crafting new responses to yourself. And remember, who you attract and how people treat you is all based on the way you treat yourself. And we'll be talking about where it is each of the 12 signs treats themselves that leads to the way they are treated. And then finally, the Saturn will sextile Uranus at the end of the week. And I didn't talk about this earlier, but this is ultimately our plans for spirit tying into our plans for manifesting on Earth. So I'll talk about where you are connecting the dots in your life. All right, I'll be taking a lot of water in between. Aries. Well, Aries, this Mercury retrograde is a re-examination of the way you treat yourself. So you're going to look at how you approach yourself intellectually when you have a response to yourself. So when you have a mistake or you do something good, what's your first default response in your mind? The universe is saying it's time for a new response. The way your mind talks to you, what your mind assumes, the prejudice in your mind, this all needs to change. And Mercury retrograde all the way back to step 26, Pisces, which means by the end of that retrograde, you'll now have a new devotion to God and a new mental idea of what your relationship to God is. So it's kind of funny. I mean, you are the embodiment of incarnation. And so you literally are going to decide to change your behavior, which means that you must therefore change your relationship to God. The irony is, of course, it was backwards in creation. It was first your relationship to God, and that forged your behavior. Either way, you're rethinking how you treat yourself and what you have faith in. Now, the Sun conjoining Neptune means that, and the North Node means that your heart is now going to embody an updated or a brand new spiritual mission. Now, this spiritual mission doesn't always have to do with spirituality, by the way. It just comes from your spirit. So your spirit might want to, invent a new fishing pole line, or your spirit might want to be the next person to, do something incredible physically, and nothing to do with spirit. But whatever the case is, you're going to really endorse that contract over the course of this week, and the conjunctions of the North Node will put you closer to the contract, and Neptune will be you signing the contract and embracing it. Now, the Sun in Aries will be your birthday. Happy birthday! Happy early birthday. You are building the new character, ultimately, and I think this is the Phoenix rising. I think we've already seen the fiery death of the old Aries in one way or another. Often you manifested some sort of major issue for that to happen, but now you're going to start to see what you are known for, and this happens by how you treat yourself. So we only have 2 degrees in it this week, step 0 and step 1, but these 2 degrees are very important, what you hold space for in yourself and what you love about yourself. And then the sextile between Saturn and Uranus. Ultimately, Saturn's in the 12th house. You're taking responsibility for karma, but Uranus is in the 2nd, which is money. So by the end of the week, you're going to realize that certain spiritual paths lead to money, and some spiritual paths do not. And all this time, you thought it was based on just money. All right. Dry day. Taurus. Taurus, you are now rethinking your faith in yourself and why you have faith in yourself. And I think it begins with you looking at what you're about to do and questioning, do you have enough faith in yourself, ultimately? Now, faith for you is an action. You have Aries in that space. So you tend to, if you can't do it, you don't have faith. But maybe that was the old rule. Maybe you can have faith now from not doing it, but just having the potential to do it. Maybe you just have to know you can do it, but don't actually have to follow through with it. So Mercury in Aries retrograde means sort of rethinking what your definition of faith in yourself means. And then as Mercury goes back to step 26 Pisces, this will be a moment where you have a new devotion to your place in society and your spiritual impact on society. Now, I think your heart knows precisely what you want to do in society, but I think the mind has been very fuzzy logic about it. And so I think this retrograde is going to help your mind going with very much in that case, but also the sun, later on with the sun moving through the space for one final time over the planets, you're going to really have a clarity, I think, and a knowing in your heart. In fact, that's really what the conjunction of the North Node and Neptune will be for Taurus. Is you're going to sort of blend in your heart and your soul mission into one, and I think you won't be able to find the difference between the two. Now, there might be some core corrections or some course corrections, so allow the universe to show you where to stand on stage or how to frame yourself. And you might even have a final intuition about something that was held from you because you weren't ready until now to know it. When the sun goes into Aries, Taurus, it'll be now time to really embrace a new faith in yourself with your heart, of course, and I think one that doesn't require necessarily action or success per se. It's just the knowing and the understanding and sort of the oneness of God. Aries is sort of the singular. I think part of what Tauruses are doing now is sort of embodying themselves as one with God consciousness. And then with the Saturn sextile Uranus, for you, this is a connection between your society placement and your responsibility in society, and then your own character. So I think you're going to realize that with the change of your society placement, your character now must upgrade and sort of get the right wardrobe for the job. Gemini, Mercury retrograde. Now, this is a big one for you, Gemini. Mercury retrograde for you affects you more than any other sign. I find that it switches the polarities of your brain. And so if you're normally dominant logic, you become dominant intuitive. If you're normally dominant intuitive, you become dominant logic. And so it gives you a chance to sort of live on the other side of your thinking. At the same time, what this means is that you're going to rethink your placement in society, or better yet, rethink what you make yourself do in society, or who you make yourself be to yourself in society. So you might make yourself be the nice guy, you might make yourself be the smart one or the quiet one, or make yourself stand in the back of the room. And so that retrograde is going, is that really the best place for me? Is that how I should put myself out there, or how I should force myself out there? Once you sort of let go of certain thinking about, where you belong to yourself in society, Mercury goes back into Pisces, and this is an opportunity now for you to recalculate your career goals and where you want to lead yourself. In fact, that's what the Sun conjunction of Neptune and the North Node will be. As the Sun crosses North Node and Neptune, your heart is going to be really engaged with a spiritual calling for your career or legacy. And if you have a hard time understanding what your legacy is, what you're here to do. Well, it's high vibration of spirit. So if you stay just in your logical mind, of course you weren't going to be able to see it. And maybe now that you have switched hemispheres, you can see it. And I'm counting on you actually being able to embrace it with your heart. But realize, Gemini, that these are things that must be felt, not necessarily thought about. Now, with the sun moving into Aries for you, this means that your social ambition is going to ultimately change. You're in a place now where you're ready to go for the gold. You're ready to go for the things that might have seemed too hard in the past, or things that were a lot of work that you shouldn't want to do. But you'll find that you do have the strength there and you do have the energy. So I don't think you'll be choosing anything you're incapable of. And I think that even if you feel incapable, you will be capable. But now in this first couple of steps, it's really time to sort of define like where it is you do belong in society and where you do want to go. Now, with that sextile of Saturn and Uranus, it means that Geminis will be connecting their career to their faith. And so you're going to realize that you are here to really do God's work, whether that's calling to comic books or calling to literally be in a church or religion. But you are realizing that your place in the world is very much based on your place in heaven. Cancer. Oh, Cancer, your retrograde is going to have you reconsider self-discipline. So, what motivates you? What are you motivated for? What can you get off the couch for? What can you not get off the couch for? These are all different decisions actually based on ego issues that you had, believe it or not. And your ego has created blocks for yourself. It wasn't necessarily something wrong with you or your intelligence per se. So you're going to be sort of rethinking your self-leadership. And then when Mercury goes back into Pisces, you'll be re-architecting where you feel your purpose is and what the meaning of your life is. So you have an upgrade in the meaning of your life. And I think it has to go from taking off the weight of what was your responsibility before you can see what that meaning really is. Now, as we move with the Sun conjuncting Neptune and the North Node, Cancers will be sort of pushed onto their life purpose. And if your life purpose wasn't big enough, the universe will bring people that tell you it can be bigger. And I think to some degree, Cancers are sort of not taking the easy way out, but just not aiming very high. And I mean high vibration when I say that. Being very content with helping the earth, for instance, and nurturing the lower vibration. But we're past that time now, Cancer. It's time for you to go for your highest. And so I think that conjunction is going to sort of correct you and put you on a psychic, intuitive path that you can't deny. Now, of course, when it comes to the Sun in Aries, this means that Cancers are going to now be rebirthing their career. And so the thing about Aries is it's very judgmental. So I hope you have allowed your old career to die so that you don't bring judgment to it. But in these first two steps, you're going to realize your heart belongs being responsible to yourself in a couple of areas. And if you love yourself, you can be responsible in those areas. And that responsibility in those areas will lead to ultimately your legacy and what you do. Now, with the split between the Sun and Uranus, what you're going to connect to or be connecting is your beliefs with your place in society. So Uranus is in society saying, hey, go up higher, do something better, do something higher, Cancers, than you had before. And of course, the Sun is talking about life purpose. And so you're going to realize that much of your life purpose has to do with you being in the public. And I find that interesting because, most Cancers stayed in the home, right? And here in the new era, you're being called into the public. I think that's because the whole world needs a good parent. So thank you for doing that. But you also have a personal twist to it, as we all probably know. Leos. The Leos. Leos, with this Mercury retrograde, you're going to first decommission and deconstruct what your mind thinks about your belief in yourself. And I think you can be kind of critical when it comes to your belief in yourself. It's sort of win-lose, low vibration. I think you're learning now that even losers become more believable in themselves and more believing in themselves. So I think you're upgrading your definition of how to believe in yourself and the dialogue in your mind that either constructs or deconstructs your ability to have faith. Once this happens and this gets deconstructed, you then have Mercury go back into the 8th house, all the way back to 26 degrees Pisces, where your mind will then make a new devotion to changing your life. So once you sort of remove those corrupt beliefs, corrupt meaning they weren't yours to begin with, someone put them on you and you adopted them, I think you'll then be in a place to really choose freedom and transform yourself in a way you'd never considered before. And that transformation is the key. As the Sun conjoins the North Node in Pisces, and the sun conjoins Neptune in Pisces. I think for Leos and Leo risings, this is going to be a very spiritual moment for you, where you might have a spiritual sort of moment, I guess that's the way to put it, experience, that ultimately is going to help you be reborn in a great, deep, powerful way. So I think you're going to find that you have more potential for intimacy and that you crave to be closer to everybody, including God. Now, with all that transformation, well, what does it mean going forward? Well, it means that ultimately the sun in Aries is a new life purpose. For Leos and Leo risings, your purpose is now upgraded to a new level. And it was pretty much primary before. I mean, having Aries feel this energy, it was sort of based on survival. The meaning of life was to not let the royal air go away. It was to, stick by what you know, that sort of thing. I think now the Leos and Leo risings have a purpose that's based on mastery, and has a purpose that's based on maybe even, going beyond mastery. So you could say that the Leos have become extremely well educated with all this Chiron in Aries. And then lastly, the combination of the sun and Neptune, Uranus. For Leos, the sun is in the 8th house, trust and intimacy, and Uranus is in the 10th house, career. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring together how your trust issues directly lead to a successful career or not, and how right now trust and boundaries is the number one thing you can do to get a promotion from the universe. All right. Virgos. Virgos, this retrograde is going to have you reconsider your trust in yourself and your boundaries with yourself. You're going to realize that you have been very defensive and you have been basically on a warpath with yourself, which means the world has maybe been on a warpath with you at times. And this warpath probably has to do with you trusting yourself at the core. So the retrograde is going to be you rethinking, where are your boundaries with yourself? Do you enforce them? Do you live by them? And how can you make them thrive and do better? I think it's the first and foremost thing that has to happen. Once that happens, then Mercury goes into Pisces, and you begin to now look at the possibilities of what relationships can be at large. And so once once the clogs or the things that prevent you from being really close to people are removed, well, now there's a decision to maybe consider a closer marriage or a closer connection to the person you're already married to. So I think Mercury's helping you to get closer by removing spiritual junk in your trunk. Now, the conjunction of the sun and Neptune and the sun and North Node in Pisces means that you are now having a spiritual rebirth when it comes to long-term partnerships. And I've talked to a couple of Virgos who've been working on stuff, and they told me it's like they haven't found the one just so much yet, but they have gotten rid of the ones that don't work. So I hear you're cleaning house, and I think as part of this clarity, with the sun conjuncting Neptune and the North Node, I think you're going to have even greater clarity. Now, the sun in the Aries means that it's now time to look at boundaries completely different. Your boundaries aren't necessarily to save your life. Your boundaries are to refine your life, to polish your life, to make things go a little more smooth and less black and white. I think that a lot of reasons why Virgos are so upset on the inside quite often is because Aries rules the 8th, and because everything that's a change is sort of almost seen as a friction. So I think that this new sun in Aries, this higher vibration sun of Aries, means it's going to be a lot smoother when it comes to boundaries and probably slower when it comes to execution versus ripping the Band-Aid off. Then lastly, this trine between the sun and Uranus, Saturn, Uranus. Saturn is saying, hey, it's time to take responsibility for long-term partnerships, and that will directly lead to purpose. So the astrology suggests here that long-term partnerships and purpose are almost two married parts of yourself. When you're marrying the person, you're marrying a purpose of yours, and when you're divorcing or leaving a person, you might be leaving a purpose of yours. So there's a connection now of partnership leads to purpose. Here's one that has changed a lot. Libras. Libra, you are now rewriting your marriage vows, basically, the things you vow to yourself. And when I talked to Libras in the old days, I haven't talked to Libras in a long time because I haven't been doing readings very much, but I will be coming back soon, by the way. Libras have always really thought of other people. When I ask them about them, they often don't have an answer. I didn't know if they were hiding it or they really didn't know. Now that I'm looking at the transits here, I think that they knew, but they didn't really pay attention. So you have an understanding of how you relate to yourself. You just don't like to think about it. You're much more interested in how you relate to other people. So this is a much needed space, this Mercury retrograde, for you to really get granular deep with the details of how you approach yourself, what you say to yourself, etc., and come up with a new approach for how to be nicer to yourself all at large, right? Now, then Mercury goes into Pisces, which means that once you're nicer to yourself, you're ready to aim for a higher vibration of lifestyle. So this suggests that that Libras were allowing basically their relationship to themselves to poo-poo the party, to shift all over it, basically, or to what's the word we always say, to shit all over it. And so now that you don't have such a fighting energy with yourself, and that fight could be back and forth for what's fair or what's equal or whatever. Now life seems a lot brighter. And so I think you're going to realize that you can aim higher without you on top of you all the time. Now, the Sun in Aries then means that you're going to now begin a new approach to marriage and partnerships. And this is a big one because this is the part of you that you're best at. So it's funny when the universe says, okay, you're the best at it, go do it better, right? So you're being called to basically rewrite relationships for human beings on the planet using yourself as the guinea pig. And that really kind of begins going forward. And the first chapter, of course, is how you relate to you. And then Saturn trining Uranus. Saturn's trying to help you to take control of your lifestyle, find the right life that you want, surrounded by the right people in the right town, that sort of thing. And what it's trining to is the 8th house, which suggests that you're going to have to really be flexible and willing to change your boundaries in dialectical ways in order to be able to push forward with this lifestyle change. But it does say that lifestyle is tied to where your boundary structure is. All right. Scorpios. Scorpio, the Mercury retrograde for you involves looking at your health in a whole new perspective and how your body has embodied all of your spiritual karma. And I know a lot of Scorpios have had some struggling with their health lately. I think it's because the energy of Aries for you is in the house of health and body, and this is the part of life that's really starting to decay and be reborn. And so, Scorpios hold on to things stronger than anybody. And so I think it's been really hard for you because you frequently hold on to the past a lot stronger than other people do. So you're going to be re-examining, well, what does my health have to be anyways? Who's in charge of that? That sort of thing. And then Mercury moves all the way back into 26 Pisces, which is an invitation now to recraft your beliefs, knowing that your life will not be so shitty. So I think that now that you have re-examined your health and how to stay healthy, you make new devotions to where you're going. I think in some cases, if you're a young Scorpio, you probably you wanted the world in the first step, and now maybe you're coming back and just being realistic with how much of the world you want to actually affect. Now, here's the thing that's really cool. The Sun conjuncting Neptune in the North Node is for Scorpio's dreams to come true. That's right. God and the universe wants Scorpio's dreams to come true. Those dreams, though, are in your heart, okay? I know a lot of Scorpios say to me, oh, my dream is to win the lottery. No, it's not, right? And so that's why you'll never win it, because it's not really your dream. So try not to fall into these two-step manifestations. Get straight to the point. Know what your heart wants. It doesn't matter you haven't ever seen it before. It doesn't mean that the universe doesn't have the parts for it is a problem. It doesn't mean that not having the money is a problem. It just means that your heart has to be clear on what you want, so God, the universe, can create these resources for you. All right. So take the resources and the witnessing out of the table. And then lastly, with Saturn sextiling Uranus, it means that Scorpios are hardwiring their heart with their marriage. May seem obvious, but I think that Scorpios compartmentalize. And I don't think you allow parts of your marriage to see your heart, and you'll let parts of your heart see your marriage. So I think you're allowing things to have free trade, basically, between the heart and your partnerships. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this Mercury retrograde is calling for you to re-examine your self-love relationship to your inner child. So I think that Sagittarius has abandoned their inner child very early on because they felt abandoned by their families and they wanted out of there. And so you jumped into an adult life way too soon and quite often sort of stomped on that inner child energy. So I think to some degree this is a resurrection of your inner child energy because it has fallen out of grace. But I also think this is a re-examination of how you think about your inner child and how you think about love and whether or not you need love. I think Sagittarius are the first one to say they will sign up and try to earn it. And God Universe is saying, nope, it comes with the house. You definitely want to move forward, right? Now, the Sun conjuncting Neptune and also the North Node says that you are going to move forward now with all emotional family security. So you're now ready to feel good about everything, to feel protected by God, to feel like you're not in the flood zone, to feel like you're not going to be under some sort of real estate scam. You've had a lot of hard stuff when it comes to home and family. maybe it started in childhood but didn't include in adulthood, but at least you're probably afraid that it would, and that's the karma right there, is the fear, not the result. And so as we move forward now in the Sun in Aries, it's now time to go ahead and craft. Now that you have this great emotional home, and you come from a great home now that you've created, it's now time to go after your dreams 100%. So the universe is applauding you and telling you for you to go for it. Go after what you love. Go after your favorite things. And if it's not your favorite, I would say don't buy it, okay? Now, the trine that's going to happen is between your emotional foundation and your health. And so the universe is creating a link this week that says you've got to be on top of both at the same time, because they're going to co-trigger one another. You'll have a crappy daily life if you don't take care of yourself on that emotional self, and vice versa. So be emotionally nurturing, and you'll find that your daily life is also a fun place to be. Capricorns. Capricorns, this Mercury retrograde has to do with your own personal security. How you think of your feelings, how you regard your feelings. If you throw them away, do you abandon them? Does your mind even care about them? So looking deeply, without judgment, to how your thoughts judge your feelings or react to your feelings. And so you're probably going to realize that your mind runs a little bit too fast, and in some cases just goes too far when it comes to your perceptions. And, combine how you were like really good at holding on to things and that your mind was stuck in this rut. I don't think Cap and Cap Risings had a chance to really come out of those old emotional feelings. So you're going to rewrite, or you're going to pull away from certain feelings you have about survival and what family should be. And then Mercury goes into 26 Pisces when it stations direct. It goes 29, 27, 26. But when it gets to 26, it actually stations direct. And this means that Capricorns will have a new devotion over the course of this month to a new outcome in life, like a new devotion. And it's more of an outcome or a strategy that you're practicing. But however, it's very important because it's the fabric of what would be, your ability to create something we have never seen before, and for you to, ultimately create something that is godlike. So, I think Capricorns have been sort of business-minded, and this gives you a new spiritual mind infused. Now, with the sun moving into Aries, it means that you're now ready to feel good at home. You're ready to feel good with yourself. You're ready to do the things necessary for yourself. It means Capricorns aren't so quick to get out of the house every day and go running off to work. That home is just as valuable as career. So this is the beginning of a whole new Capricorn that comes from a home that's nurturing and sort of Cancer-like. And then the sextile between Saturn and Uranus, for Capricorns, you are wiring your thoughts to your inner child. So ultimately, combining this new attitude and this new belief about where your life is going and including your inner child, so your inner child can make some changes or actually tell your mind to redo it and do it over again. Because out of the two, third house or fifth, which is the boss? The fifth house, the house of inner child, the house of the sun. Oopsie. Aquarius. Aquarius, you are rethinking your self-talk. And this is something I've been trying to point out to Aquarius for a long time, and you all act like you don't hear me. And what this is that you have some voice inside yourself that's probably based on you surviving, obviously, surviving rhetoric, surviving, probably, criticism, surviving, thoughts and rumors that you were the weird ones. And so that survival attitude, ego-infused attitude, is now in the way of you opening up and thinking differently about yourself. So the retrograde is going to have you sort of erase some of your inner world philosophies about yourself. Now, what this does is allow you, of course, to create new thinking and new intellectual property. And also what this does is this, with the sun moving through Aries into Pisces, this means that you can now start to think about your abundance and material property. So the last part of the retrograde of Mercury will actually call for you to commit to a new level of manifestation, a new definition of abundance. And I hope it's abundance that you don't give away or hoard. Both can happen. Now, of course, we were just talking about this. The sun crossing Neptune and the North Node in Pisces means that Aquarius is going to have a real epiphany about abundance, about the ability to manage several revenue streams at once, financial, integrity and whatnot. So you're moving into now this new period of spiritually led financial activity. And I think that's very interesting to say the least. Now, when the sun goes in Aries, it means a fresh attitude. So with the sun in Aries, you're going to pretty much, given all the complicated outer planet stuff, I think that you're going to reprogram how you think entirely. I think some of you are going to go somewhere and get an accent by accident, okay? Because your heart is stepping into new premises about thinking, new direction and how far things can go, and also perhaps new potential for what the big, crazy idea is. And remember, you are the sign that downloads innovation all the time. And then, of course, with the sextile, Saturn in Pisces is sextiling the 4th. And so what this means is that you are connecting the two energies of financial security with emotional security, which means that to each they can do their own, and to each they can compare it to each other, and they can be friends, but they're not here to replace each other. And so energetically, I think you are decoupling the idea of that your money has to be directly tied to something not fun, right? So it's going to be a good thing for you. All right, and then lastly but not least, the Pisces. Pisces, oh my goodness. So Mercury retrograde starts in Aries, and this will be ultimately your self-worth. You're going to realize that your self-worth needs one more go at it, and that there's many things that happen in your mind and whatnot that keep you from making the money you deserve and doing what you really want. So you're going to rethink about self-worth, and then Mercury will go to 26 degrees Pisces, which means that now that you've taken the caps off of your self-worth, you have potential for great abundance like you never had before. So you're going to kind of redefine your character, that you're no longer a struggling artist, that you're a successful one, or you're going to realize that you can now aim for the title now and start calling yourself that title before you even actually prove it. That'll be a change as well that happens. So Mercury retrograde leaves you devoted to becoming someone else in the moment, a new character. So I think we see a lot of Pisces shapeshift. Now, the conjunction in your sign of the Sun and Neptune in the North Node means that you are, in fact, launching a character of yourself. And I think this will be the character you are known for until the day you die. I don't think the planets have any major character changes for Pisces. For the Sun of Pisces and Pisces. And so I feel like, you're moving forward with a character that you're going to find yourself playing for quite a long time, and maybe even playing in another life if it works really well. Now, the Sun in Aries means that now the high vibration of Aries for you is that all of your actions lead directly to worth, that you are constantly making deposits into your self-worth and no longer necessarily taking withdrawals out, and that your heart can now raise your own stock market and change it from a bear to a bull market. And then, of course, with the Saturn sextile Uranus, this is, Saturn's in your first house, Pisces, and so you are literally taking responsibility for your behavior and this new part of yourself. And what the universe is saying there is with Uranus in the third house, you want to make sure that your mind and your high-minded thinking is completely in line with your new character. You want the dialogue and the character to be on the same page. All right. Woo-wee. Well, folks, that wraps up another exciting edition of Namaste Today Live. We normally have a whole bunch of things to say here, but now we only have just a couple because we are putting things now in little bumpers and teases you'll see. One thing I want you to know is that you can advertise on Serious Joy if you don't know. We have a wonderful program called Ad Intuitive. We have a wonderful person in charge of this, which is Jenny D. And for more information on how to be a sponsor, you can email this email address, which I think is jenny@adintuitive.com. I'd look at it on my screen myself. Sharing is caring is the best way to really spread the word. It's the best thing you can do for us. It's very good karma. So share us with your friends, share us with your family. Every time I talk to someone and ask, how do you find us? They always say, so-and-so referred me. And I can't say to you how precious that is. You can also hang out with us on our Facebook group, which is at seriousjoy.club. And you just have to be nice and not talk politics if you want to stay in there. You can come to our link tree at seriousjoy.social and find us all over the web doing all sorts of things. And if you rather listen instead of watch, you can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. All right, friends, that's all we have for now, but I'll be back 1 week with more. Have a powerful transition in Aries. And remember, friends, I love you. Live, love, be. This week on SeriousJoy.com, me and my co-host, psychic medium Scott Cruz, shoot the shift on our weekly show, Leading Out Loud, every Thursday. This week's topic, leadership in the new era. How will new power structures organize the role of the sacred feminine and masculine? Then on Friday, don't forget to tune in to our next AstroMingle, where we connect with light workers from all over the planet for a new perspective and an astrological twist. We'll be talking with Jill M. Jackson, a multi-talented psychic medium, spiritual teacher, expert speaker, and author. It's a can't miss episode. All this and more coming up next week on Serious Joy.